Hello everybody, and welcome to another tutorial in camera and lens repair. And this time I will take an old fellow and with a very stiff focus ring, and it's an In-Ai-s Nikkor 85mm 1.4. So let's have a look at this old fellow. It's a nice lens actually, and it looks actually, well, there's some dirt and dust in here, but the focus ring, let's see what we can do. It should be very easy and actually very light to focus, but as you can hear, it's a bit dry in the helicoid. So what can we actually do about it? I mean, the lens, the aperture works pretty good, and seems to be fine, but the focus, wow, really dirty. And before we actually taking it apart, we need some tools. We need actually a JIS screwdriver, which will be 2.5, which will be fine. Or I prefer this modified PH00 from Vera, which I like, also because it's very short compared to this one from Multitools. You can actually buy those on ifixit.com, a set of 4 different. And we need a 1.2mm flathead screwdriver, also Vera, which I like. No, I am not sponsored by any company. Everything what I do on my YouTube channel, it's paid by myself. My tools, my whatever, grease, everything. So that's clear. Now, some dentist tool can be very handy to make some scratch on the aluminium, and this end is actually very good to lift up the rubber grip on the focusing ring, or the other end too. A tweezer is also very handy, and we need something to actually re-grease the focusing ring, focusing helicoids. And for this I will use the grade 10. I know it's difficult to see. And it's actually, I buy it at japanhobbytool.com on Amazon. And we also need 2 brushes, one for actually cleaning with the lighter fluid, which could be this one, or any other company, Extra or whatever it's called. And the other one is only for the grease. Now, what could also be very handy, some nail polish remover with acetone. And when we are actually done with and put all things back in, some Loctite 243, which is the blue one. Well, the bottle is actually red because it's Loctite, but the fluidium in here is actually blue. I've also been into the lens before to actually take some notes, which is very important before actually taking apart this special lens. So I made some notes. So it will be quite easy to actually take it apart and put it back in, so you can see what's actually going on. So before taking anything out, the infinity ring has to set on infinity. I mean, no, sorry, the focusing ring. Sorry. The focusing ring has to set on infinity. And the aperture ring is also set on 16, as I wrote down here, and it will make it a lot easier to put back in the lens assembly. Now I know we have to actually taking out the lens assembly. We have to go all the way up to 0.85 meter, and we see on the front ring here, to actually get it off, there is a small set screw here which we need to only loosen. And for that we will use the 1.2 millimeter flathead screwdriver, and this is the only screw of that kind we need to unscrew for the focusing, for the front ring too. So simply loosen it, just a few turns, and unscrew this ring counterclockwise, and then will it come off in a few turns. So that's it. Now we can actually just put in the screw a few turns, so we know where it is. You will not lose this one. Now, and then we actually go back to infinity, if it's possible, and do not, really do not flip the lens over at this point. It will fall out, and if we look actually a bit closer, you can see the lens element here, the front lens element, is fully exposed. So if you drop it, yeah, there will be some scratch, maybe. Well, let's see. I will set it to infinity here, and then I can actually take out the lens assembly and simply pop it in my hand, set the aperture ring to 16, so, and let the lens assembly simply turn over the focusing ring and let it come out. So this is how it looks. Now, to a few points that is important. They already set a mark here in the factory, and it's for the little pin here. See this little pin? That's actually the one I can just put my lens, flip over the, turn over the front name ring and put the lens on it. You see, this lens has a floating element. So when turning the focusing ring, the outer focusing ring here, it will turn also in here. This little fork will also turn, and it will, on the other hand, turn the back of the floating element here. It will turn the back lens group, and if you turn it too much, it will come off. This is why it sometimes is very necessary to actually measure, because that's important when we work with lenses. So when we have some more notes, see, the back lens group, helicoid, which is actually this one here, and it has to turn almost 3/4 turn till it come off. It will say when we look from the back, and the locking screw here, which is not a screw, it's eccentric. It's if we look down here, if I turn the helicoid here all the way over to around here, it will say something 4 o'clock. It will come off. But if you do not set a mark here when this helicoid comes off, you you have to use a lot of time to actually get it into correct place again. Maybe it's easier, but you could just first measure how long is it from the very back till here. So there should be something like 23.39. So let's see how it will actually measure. It will be something like that, more or less. But, well, it's something 23.36, but it's also in the reference. I said more or less. It doesn't, it depends on how much you turn it and measure. But if I turn this helicoid from here, my starting point, all the way over till when it comes off, and it come off there, and I will just turn it so I can see the off point here with a little pin. So if I turn it there, and then it comes off. So that's important, because if I just where, so I can set it on here, it will work, but it will not come to the point where it was in the beginning. So that's why it is important both measure how long, what distance should be here to there, and also make an off point. This is why it is so important. So now I can just put it on here, find the thread, it says click, and then it will come all the way over here, and then I'm back again. So that was one thing. Put it aside because we'll not work at this at the moment, but so now we will head off to the actual focus ring, the body, and there are some things to actually take care of. There are 2 guide pins here, one there and one there. The other here is the aperture pin connection to the camera, and this pin here is actually from the aperture ring. And when you assemble or disassemble, this pin should stay there, because then if it stays over here, or let's say something aperture 4 or 1.4, it's not possible to open the lens. Take out the lens assembly. It will be a little more difficult. So this is why I take notes. So I set a mark here. It says 1, and I also set a mark here that says 1. So with my dentist tool, I actually set a mark here, which you probably can see on both of it, here and there. I also set a mark down here, so I'm sure it is correct when the distance mark is set to infinity. On the other pin I also set a mark which says 2. So there is no, I cannot confuse of, okay, where should it sit? The end stop in both ends is also important to set a mark which way this pin should sit. If you put it in wrong, it will maybe not work, but it has to sit like this. So there, I also set a mark here, so I know where it should sit. Now, head off to the rubber grip and take it off. One can use a dentist tool. I prefer to use it, and simply, gently pry it off. So, there are some sticky tape around here, the focusing ring, which I of course have been taken off at first. So I can simply just pry it off again. And simply take it off. It will also take the small two, the other one here, which I don't like to take off yet, but sooner. So simply pry it off, and here we are. Put it on your desk again, and you can see there are 3 rings. The distance ring here, the actual focusing helicoid, and a front ring. So before actually taking out anything at the moment, you simply need to make a scratch here, not really on this ring, but it's more important you set a mark here, because then you have the infinity at the right point when we assemble everything. So I can just pry off the two small piece of tape here, and the other one, and things are actually loose right now. So this ring comes just off. It's nothing special. But the other ring, which is the focusing ring here, the meter ring, I will also need to take off. But first, I will need to take off the mount. It will make it a bit easier. And for that, I will use a JIS 00 or my pH0, which is modified by filing off the tip. So make it as just like, I know it's not the same, but it works really good if you do so. And I prefer the short. So if the screws here, which are not loose here, but if they are, we can actually use some nail polish remover. And just for giving an idea of, it will make things a bit easier. We just use a cotton bud and simply add something here, there, and let it suck in. And it will soften the thread lock if there is any. To just let it sit a little, and will it make it much easier to unscrew. So there. And the last one here. So now off with the mount, which we can just take out. And the aperture connection pin will just sit there and can move a little. So this is it. Now to actually get rid of the aperture ring, because we need to actually take that out, and the pin in here, which you can see here, there are 2 screws there, so we will take them out and take out the little pin, the fork. And here we can see this fork here. It says in the gap here, which you can see. So it is. It can only sit one way, so that's easy. Take care of the 2 small screws. They get tiny. Now, then I can just take off the aperture ring. So now we actually have the naked focusing helicoid, which we see here with the distance scale. And next thing is to do is actually take out the shiny ring here, but before doing so, just to make sure it sits correct and not get confused, okay, where should it sit, you can just set a mark here so you know where it should sit in line with the distance mark, and then unscrew the 3 screws around here. It can probably sit only in one way, but make sure it sits correct. And if the screws again is a very, what do you say, very strong, I mean very tight, we could just again use some nail polish remover. It's not the case here because I have been into the lens before, so it's not really that tight, but if so, out with those. You can see there are some white, I mean hopefully you can see there are some white color in the end of the screw, which is the thread lock. So there. Now, make things clear. The ring here, this shiny ring, will come off itself. It can only sit in one way. It will say it cannot go on this. It simply cannot, because there is a, if you see here, it's not the same on both sides. And the next thing is the index mark ring. I think it's called that, I don't know, but simply take it off. So nothing really special. And next thing is the meter scale, and here we are with the naked focusing helicoid. You see, I haven't taken out the stop in here. That's a reason. So I can see here where my infinity is before I actually take out the whole thing. And that's important because I should end up with the really tight, with the focusing ring at the same point before I started. So to make sure the distance from back to the front is the same before I take it out and is the same when I put it back in again, we'll just measure. So doing so, it should be something like 55 point something like that. So there. And we just let it, I simply lock this. And then I take another note here. The focusing helicoid is 55 millimeter from the front. It will say here to at infinity to the very back here. So that's clear. And then we can actually take out the key, but I need to take out the stop before I take out the 2 key here. So we'll do so. That's why I set a mark here, because when I take out the little stop here, I do not have any point where it's correct. So just make things sure. So we just move it a little and need a screwdriver here. Take care of the small screws and just keep a finger on here and move the stop out. So, and the stop comes out. And if you see, the screw holes here are not in the middle. It's a bit off. That's the reason why I set a mark here. And I also set a mark here inside, which I already note in the beginning. So, so now we actually do not have any stop on this. So the only thing is the mark here on the focusing ring that will end up here. So there. That's my starting point where it should be. So now I can take out the 2 key, the 1 and the 2, and they are not interchangeable. It will say this key here has to sit here. That's why I set number 1 and number 1. And the screws, the 2 set of screws here, as you can see, it's countersunk. And on the other side, in the other key here, it's not countersunk. So make sure the screws is for the 1 key and the other key. I do not have a repair manual for this lens, so this is why I take notes. So out with that screw for the 1 key. And out with a key. So this is how it looks. And you can probably see it's countersunk holes. The other one, it will say number 2. It's just they have put on some kind of painting or lacquer because to lock the screws. Because this is a kind of adjustment how correct will the one key here sit. The other one, it's not possible to actually move, but this one is a bit adjustable. So this is not countersunk screw. And the holes are a little bigger, as you probably can see, compared to the other on the other side. Well, to me it looks actually the same size, but it's the one side has countersunk screws. So out with that. And out with the key. So actually right now we have a focusing system which is completely free of any lock mechanism. So there's one thing we need to do, is taking out the little spring down here for the aperture. That could be a little tricky. Oh gosh, come on, so little fellow there. And we also need to take the other out so we know where it is. You will not lose this. Now, everything is loose at the moment. So the next thing is to do is actually to take out the back helicoid system. And as with the very back floating element, I have my starting point, and there is also an off point where it comes off. And be sure how the pin, the connection pin for the camera to the aperture inside is located. It should sit in this gap here. So when you turn the back helicoid here, this pin will just follow as you turn it. It will say you cannot take off the front helicoid before you take out the back here. So that's why we take off the back first. There's no, just a quick note, there's no need for taking out this pin here. No. So my starting point, and I will turn it until it comes off. And just as I said, the outer helicoid, which I think this is the outer helicoid compared to the inner here, it has to turn almost 3/4 turn till off. It will say at 8 o'clock looking from the back. So if I look to it from the back here and I have my starting point, it will say I will turn it at, just to say where it is, it's actually almost here, this screw. So I will turn it until 8 o'clock. And looking down here where I already set a mark, and I have my mark here, and pop, off. And now it's off. So that's one thing. is clear. And now the other one, it will say the front. Again, the inner helicoid, I will turn it a little more than half a turn till off. It will say at 5 o'clock, looking from the front. It will say from here. So it's very stiff. And if we're looking from the front, wow, it's really stiff. This is my starting point, the gap here. And I also have my starting point here at the focusing ring. So I will simply turn it all the way over to here when it comes off. It will say turn, 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 turn. Oh, it's really, really stiff. When it comes off, I set a mark. So if we look here, it will say there. So if we look from the front, it is actually 5 o'clock compared to the very top here. And when it comes off, I set a mark here, where you probably can see. I know it's difficult. So I can simply separate the two helicoids. That's it. And now, time to cleaning some helicoids with lighter fluid. Okay, time to re-grease the helicoids again. And after cleaning the helicoids here, it looks absolutely, yeah, almost new. It's not new, I know. But I will re-grease the helicoid with Japan Hobby Tool grade 10 grease and a fine brush. In this case, it's a makeup brush, which is really good for that. So let's continue with the helicoids. And I will take the inner helicoid first and put on, because it's what actually is a good thing to do at first. And I will just use a little amount of helicoid grease. There's not so much to use. I mean, it's a big thread here, so let's see how good it will be. I have to spend some. Maybe someone will say it's a bit too much, but I mean, it's a heavy lens assembly, so there has to be some. But I think it's really good grease here for this lens. I think it would be too heavy with the grade 30, because yeah, that's just a guess. But let's see how it will work. So now I have to add some, and I have to find my off point, which will be here with the arrow I set in the very beginning when I took it apart, and I have to find my starting point here. So if I put this on here and find the thread, it should click at some point there. Sometimes it's difficult to actually get it on. So here it is. And then give it some movement to just spread the grease in the helicoid. And if there is a bit too much, well, we can just take it away. and it doesn't seem that is actually quite okay. I can just wipe a little of this away. There's no need there's too much. So I can just put it on again and say that's fine, because the inner helicoid has to come on first, and before you actually can put in the back helicoid, I mean the outer helicoid here. So let's see how it will go. And I do the exact same. Paint some grease on it. Maybe there are other that will do it in a different way. Well, maybe. But this is just the way I think it works really good. And some maybe use a different grease. Well, it depends on what you think is the best, but I've tried many different grease and oil, and with Teflon, without Teflon, but I think this kind of grease is actually the best. So now we can see if we can find the off point, and we have my starting point here, and my off point was down here, so looking from the back is down here at 8 o'clock. So my mark here, which is my point, and remember one thing, this the aperture connection pin has to be all the way over here when you put it on. If you do not, well, it's not really possible to screw it on. So let's see if we can find the thread here. Can be there. And be aware of when turning, this one here has to go all the way over here, and it cannot go any further. So this one has to go there, and then I can actually screw in the inner helicoid. Maybe I have to move the outer a little back so there's room for the helicoid, the inner helicoid, to move into a correct place, and then I can screw this in again and screw this in and this one until they actually have their infinity point, it will say here, because then this pin here has to move in this area. So if you just put in the inner helicoid, you will not be able to actually put this on. The outer helicoid will not be able to screw it in. So therefore this has to be a little, move this a little, I mean move the outer a little and also the outer a little, as long as it can, and then you can continue with unscrew the inner. But they all have to actually sit correct when you put it in. So there, and this, oh gosh, has to sit there, and keep a finger on it so it will move into this area here. So it sits there, and this one sits there. And here we are back on track. So now I can put in the two guide pins without any problem. And I will start with number 1, which will be this number. That's why I set scratch here with number 1. And we also have to add a little, just a tiny amount of grease on the side of it. So not necessary to add too much. So there, that's fine. And load the screwdriver with the screw, so you're able to put it in that. Yeah, let's put it in. See how it will go. There, find the holes in here. So there, and it is there. So, and you maybe think, why not use some thread lock? Well, now I have a better control of what I'm actually doing. So I will add some Loctite, just a small tiny drop of Loctite 243. It's a blue one. So there should be much more than enough for the rest of the of the work here. And I will add this. So tighten it, good. And then I can take the other out and do the same thing, because then both screws have a little. Don't use too much. So here we are. Wow, much better, much better. And so I can also add the stop in here, the little piece of brass which has to sit there. And before doing so, just load the screwdriver and put on a little tiny drop. And you maybe remember in the beginning I set a little scratch here, you might see here, and I also set a mark in here where it ends on this side, and they have to sit together. But of course I have to turn this a bit so I can actually see the holes here, and then add this tiny piece. So there, and I can then take the other screw, and then I have actually locked the focus system so it cannot be unscrewed by accident. So there, and here we are, and it works absolutely amazing. There's a good grease. So take care of the little pin here, it will not stick, so when you move it, it will press on here. So get it out of way, and now we can set it on infinity and do the rest of the work by adding the other two screws. And of course a little grease on the side of the pin here. So maybe a little too much. So that's enough. And then add this piece of metal in here. Catch the place where it has to sit in here, as we can see here. And we can just wipe away if there is too much. So that's fine. Wow, gosh, come on, little fellow. And now it sits where it should. And the other one. And then it should be, come on, nah, come on, little fellow. So, and tighten it gently. Wow, this is really good. It's really, really good, actually. Just like new, it's really good. So, and we can just wipe away the rest of here. There's no need for there's too much in here. And then add the little spring. Where's my tweezer here? So this little tiny spring here. A dented tweezer is actually a good thing in that case here, because it will be easier to add. I mean, I hope. Sometimes it's a little more difficult than a so there. But we will make it, hopefully. So here we are. That was one end. And next the other end, which sometimes can be a little tricky. No. Who said it should be so easy to do this? Well, another tweezer. Where did it go? Here. Oh gosh, hold on. Well, it took some time to actually put it on, but one have to put a pressure on a sign and then put it in. Oh gosh, not easy, but it works, as you can see. And now I can actually put the the back here, this ring, and and put this on, but actually not yet, because we need to put the tape and the ring on again, so it will work. So this ring has to come on, and the where did it go? Let's go here. No, it was not that ring. The focusing ring itself here has to come on here, and I know where it should sit because I have set a mark here. So there, and the other ring, the front the front ring here also has to sit. It doesn't really matter because there's no mark and nothing, it's just a ring, but it has to sit there. And marks are fine there, and then I can just add one of the two small tapes which I took off in the beginning, just to have them align in correct, so they sit correct. So there, and then add one of the sticky tapes so it will sit correct. It can sometimes be a little tricky to put on, but well, not really much stickiness because they have been off a few times, but let's see how it will go. Or we can just add a new piece of tape, which I sometimes do. So there, I mean, now we have more control of what we actually are doing. I'll just get a piece of new tape, hold on. So now some more new tape, which will be fine, I think, because the old one is really not good anymore. And add a new piece of tape. This should just be some good quality sticky tape, nothing special in my opinion. This is just some 3M. And I can just add on the other side. So, and this here. So, and then we are actually safe home and can get rid of those small sticky so there, and everything is actually fine. So now I can just move my focusing ring without any problem, and you can see it's absolutely great. Haha. So and then I think I will just well, put on the back here. say the cover here, and just set it to infinity as we would like, and simply put this on here. Okay, so here my distance mark is here, my index mark is here, and there is a screw hole here which should be coming on here, and just catch the hole there, and one of the 3 screws here for the ring, and I can also add a little amount of thread lock and simply put on the shiny ring here. And since I have a mark here already, which I will take away when I'm done, it's not necessary for me, but then I can just put it on the ring here, put the one of the screws in here, and doing so, and so I'm safe to move the part without any problems, and can just put in the other 2 screws, and then I'm almost done with this part of the focusing system. So there, and everything is fine. So now it's, wow, that's really good. No squeeze or no sound, just a really good working focusing system. And there is no left in here too much of grease somewhere. There might be some here. We can just get rid of it. But there doesn't have to be too much in here. So that's absolutely good. So now the next thing is actually to, well, this is done, and then I can just add my aperture ring and the fork here, which I will just load my screwdriver here and simply add the fork here. And it should go through the gap down here, as you can see. So there, and flip it over and catch get the ring on here, and find the 2 holes here and wiggle a little, then catch the 2 holes here, and then put on the screws. Just a little amount of thread lock, and then the last screw here. So you can see it's not that, complicated in a way. Well, if you do not have worked with that kind of lens, with it might be a little challenge to do. But with the proper tools and the mark where the helicoid comes off, well, it should go really good if you just follow those steps. Now, put that aside, and then we have the other part of this focusing system, which is the floating element, as you can see here on the lens assembly. And I just put the ring on here because then I can put the lens assembly on this and have it on a good stand. So there. And I need to unscrew this, the back helicoid, and in the factory they set this mark here, and when it comes off, I set an off mark over here, just to know where it comes off. And it will turn, as you can see, almost 3/4 turn when it comes off. So there it is. It seems a bit dirty, so I will just use a cotton bud with some isopropyl alcohol and simply take away. It's not really that dirty, but just to get it almost clear. So we can simply just do this. And simply go all the way around. Don't touch the lens element. And you see it looks absolutely okay. I mean, it could be more clean. Maybe I should have to disassemble the whole lens assembly. But as you can see, it's not really a big problem here. Because there is not so much to take away. And then we can just wipe away the rest of it and simply add a little amount of grease. So there. Just take from the lid. Because when putting on the helicoid here, it will simply spread the lube, the grease, so it doesn't have to be much. So, and we can just put it on and put my off point here. It has to say click, kind of. Then move it and a little more. Then we can just take it off, and it seems okay, but there's a little too much here on the back, so I can just wipe away. And it will be all fine. In this case, and simply add the back helicoid again. So there. And then I'm back on my starting point here, where it is. So that's it, actually. Then close the lid here. So the only thing I need to do is put the lens assembly into the focusing assembly and say that's fine. And As in the beginning, I set this before we take it out and put the lens assembly, set the focus ring to something infinity and the aperture ring to 16. That's important because if not, well, it will not work. And another thing, you see the aperture here has to sit all the way over here, and this pin also has to sit all the way over here. So the guide pin for the lens assembly here, that goes into the gap here, it should just slide in when I put it in. So there, and it should work all fine. Maybe some wiggle could be with the aperture ring here. Maybe, maybe not. It can sometimes be a little tricky to put in because the fork has to engage with the lens assembly, and it's not the case here. It has moved a little. This also has to sit on 16, this has to sit there. So we just try again, and maybe you have to do it by trial error a few times when it comes. I mean, it should just slide in as we do now. And then it's time to put the name ring on, because so the lens assembly will not fall out, but we can just test if the aperture is working. This is fine, and the other pin is working, so I can simply set it to near end and screw in my this ring. And of course I have to unscrew the just loosen the little set screw a little, so just have one turn and then put it in, catch the thread somewhere, put it in, and then tighten it gently. And now it should be possible to screw the set screw in, where it should be. Maybe not, maybe, or maybe not. It could be the wrong thread, but let's see. And so it is. You possibly have to move the ring a little and get the thread, the screw, so you can screw it in. And now here we are. Wow, that's really good. So then add the mount. The gap here has to go there with the aperture connection pin, and just put it over and catch the holes, so it should work. And then the 5 screws around I can put in, and I will not add any thread lock because in this case I will need to go in and clean the glass element in here, which will be a next video. And as we can see here, if I take a torch, it looks okay. Well, not really. It's a lot of dirt in here, which is only dust. There's no fungus or haze in here. It's only just a bounce of dirt. So that's why I will make another video of this lens, and hopefully it will be really good. But I hope this can inspire somebody to actually fix their own lens if the if the focusing system is really too dry, or the focusing ring is really sticky. So this is the way you could do it. So, and then we have a lens cap. And so I can just, oh, hold on a second. We will just use some tape around, all the way around here, to have things correct. And simply just add this tape here. No, it's not really good. The old tape is not really good, so I will just add a new. The tape is a bit sticky on the outside, so it will work fine. So there, and I have a scissor here. So, and now we are safe home and can put on the rubber grip. Let's say that's actually fine for now. Because we do not need to go into that again if we just work with the lens. Wow, really good. That's the way I like a focusing ring. Wow, that's great. And then I can just wipe away the tiny blue thing here. And say that's all fine for now. So that's it, actually. So I hope you have enjoyed the content here, and hopefully you can use some of the info. That's all for me from now. So enjoy, bye bye, and yeah, well, it will be interesting to see what the next thing is. Yeah, interesting lens. So that's it. Bye bye.